Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. Glad to have you here. For you newbies out there, thank you for joining me. Today we're looking at a game from 1990 between Judit Polgar with the white pieces and my former coach Leonid Yudasin with the black pieces. Now, many of you already know who Judit Polgar is, but quickly, she's the strongest female player of all time, and at the age of 12 was the youngest player to break the top 100 top chess players with a rating of 2555. So that is a child prodigy, my friends. Yudasin, again having the black pieces, was born in St. Petersburg, formerly known as Leningrad. He's a coach in New York City right now. So if you ever in New York City or need a coach, visit the Marshall Chess Club or just look up him online on the Marshall Chess Club. I'm sure he'll probably do some lessons via Skype or Zoom or something like that nowadays. He was top 5 in the world at his peak. His peak was from like 1990 to 94, about where he was like in the 2650 range. He was a candidate for the World Chess Championship. He actually played and lost a match to Vasily Ivanchuk. I believe I want to say 92. It was somewhere during that candidate cycle. And so he played Ivanchuk when Ivanchuk was like, Ivanchuk. Like, he was like a monster, Not the Ivanchuk that missed mate and won versus Anand, but he played an Ivanchuk that just had 1,000 eyes and saw everything everywhere on the board. So this game started off as a Sicilian. Also, I want to tell you too that the game took place in Pamplona, Spain. So there's a little map over there on the left side of the board, so you can see where it is. It's almost near the border of France in northern Spain. And from the picture, it looks like a beautiful city and worth visiting. If you're from Spain, give me a shout out. If you've been to Pamplona before, let me know what it's like there. Is it worth traveling there? Is it worth going there? For a vacation sometimes, let me know. Also, I want to say that Chess Audiobooks is on all the social media platforms, Twitter, Instagram, and I'm also on chess.com, live chess under the same name. So come play me there if you want to play speed chess or whatever. I'll be down for it. I'll play you in 10-minute games, 15-minute games, whatever. I'm taking all comers, and like Muhammad Ali said, I'm knocking out all bums. So, I would love to see you guys there, on all the social media platforms, and also play some chess with you guys. Also, hit the like, subscribe button, all of those good things, and check my links below and support this channel. This is the best channel out there for chess content. Just click on my icon and you see all the videos on every subject in chess. So, what we have here is a Sicilian defense on the board, but we have a different kind of Sicilian because most of you are used to seeing knight takes d4 after e takes d4, which is mainline Sicilian. What we have here after queen takes d4 is known as the Chekover variation, and depending where you're from, it's also known as the Hungarian variation. All right. So, just a brief side note: the Soviets dominated the chess world for many years. So this is why most of the openings have names attributed to Soviet, Russian players or Soviet bloc players. So this is just one of them. So if you're from that area, you're gonna call it Chekover variation. If you're not, you're gonna call it the Hungarian variation. But what's important to know is that with the move Queen D4. White is trying to just avoid the massive amount of theory that exists in, your other lines of the Sicilian, your Najdorfs, your Skyvenhagens, etc. Right? You're just trying to get a solid game, develop your pieces, without going into a labyrinth and maze of theory. What White will try to do certain times is play the move C4 also. Notice that with the move Queen D4, the E4 pawn is also being protected at the same time. So, what do I mean? If you look at this right here and say you were to capture with the knight, the E pawn is temporarily unprotected. Okay, so what will happen is after knight takes d4, you get knight f6, and then the pawn has to be protected somehow. So then knight c3, you get into those main lines. However, after queen d4, the e4 pawn is protected. So after knight f6, white could play c4 right away. Gets Marazzi bind if he wants to. All right. So usually for this reason, black will play knight c6, or he will anticipate the Marazzi bind coming and play bishop d7 and then knight c6 hitting the queen. This is the demerit of this opening, is that the queen being in the center like that, of course, you're bound to lose time. After knight c6, after knight c6, white used to just exchange the bishop, play bishop b5, and then just snap off the knight on c6 so that the queen can remain in the center. That's more of the old school style of playing. So this is why, as years went on, black would play bishop d7 first, so to anticipate that coming, and then play knight c6. Another idea for white is just to play queen a4 after knight c6 also. However, in this game, Judit didn't go for the idea of trying to set up a Marazzi bind, but after bishop b5, bishop d7, she just snapped off the bishop. And more modern players would just play queen e3 here and try to preserve the bishop pair a little bit longer until position clarifies itself more. This is a big commitment, right? You give up the bishop pair early, and now you're just without the bishop pair, and you don't know really how the game is gonna go. It's the same reason why I don't play the exchange variation in the Roy Lopez. Not that it's bad, it's just that you're just giving up the bishop pair right out the gate, and you can't really control how the game is gonna go. And black will often make sure that the position becomes conducive to those two bishops. And this is what black should do in these type of positions also. When white gives up the bishop pair right away, is make sure those bishops become powerful. Make sure the position ends up being open at some point. All right. Moving on. So knight c3, knight f6, bishop g5, and we see this straightforward development that I was talking about. e6, castles from Polgar, bishop e7, and now the queen drops back. The reason why the queen drops back to d3 is because now that white is fully developed, save the rook on h1, white wants to maneuver that knight on f3 into the center, d4, right, to attack the bishop. So the queen drops back. Queen a5. Black realizes white is almost fully developed, and so he starts getting his counterplay underway. The bishop drops back to h4. Again, the white knight wants to move to d4, so the bishop will be hanging, so the bishop comes back to h4. Castles from Yudasin, and now knight d4 from Polgar. Rook to c8, or rook f to c8, and now f4. So the gauntlet has been thrown down. We're going to have this opposite wing battle, and may the fastest person win, right? Who gets there first? b5 from Yudasin. Common pawn sacrifice. With these type of positions, material usually takes a backseat to the initiative. e5, again, initiative, trying to take control. Pawns are exchanged, and now the knight comes in, so Yudasin is threatened to destroy the pawn structure on the queen side. So Polgar strikes first, grabs a bishop on c6, rook takes c6, bishop comes off, and now the knight is on e7, and now Polgar uses this as an opportunity to try to gain the initiative by playing queen d7. Right, looks like a good move, attacking the knight, right? The knight is just hanging on e7, and if the knight moves, then the rook is going to be captured. So what should black do here? Right, should he play a move like king f8? Right, looks very, very passive. Okay, what should he do? Well, I'll tell you what Grandmaster Yudasin did. He played b4, right? He's counterattacked, right? This is the name of the game. You can't afford to be passive in this defense. So now Polgar is faced with the dilemma. Where do I put the knight? Do I go to b4? I can't really call it a dilemma, but it's definitely a choice, because one choice is good, one choice is bad. Dilemma usually is two bad choices. However, do you go to b5 or do you go to e4? And we'll talk about this later. Polgar went for knight b5, okay? And the reason is because the threat is still maintained on the knight, right? The threat is still maintained on e7 against the knight, okay? And if Yudasin captures that knight on b5, then there's a back rank problem, and black will get mated on the back rank. Can you see it, or do I have to show it to you? All right, I'll show it to you. I know some of you are like, yeah, I see it, and then some of you are like, I don't see it. So if queen takes b5, which would be double question mark, then just simply queen to d8. Rook takes d8, rook takes d8, and that would end the game. So these are the tactics that Polgar is relying on after knight b5. That the knight cannot be taken, at least for now. And it looks like the knight will have some type of future on d6 if she plays her cards correctly. Yudasin played b3. Very strong move. He did not move the knight. After all, if he moves the knight, the rook falls on c6. So it's all about the initiative here. And now he's threatening moves like rook takes c2 check, right? Also threatening, just simply b takes a2 and queening on the next move. All right. So Polgar has to address this. She played a3. All right. Acquiescing to rook takes c2. If she plays a takes b3, then the queen comes crashing in. Check. Queen takes b2, and now you can see all kind of pressure on c2. How do you defend? Right? Because you really can't even take the knight here, because the rook comes to c2. e3, and you can see that white is just busted here. So instead of that, a better move for Polgar will be knight d4, right? Trying to put up some type of defense. But then Yudasin would just move his rook back to c8 and then move it to d8 on the next move. Again, not even worried about the knight, because the knight is already, the white knight is already attacked. Okay, and black is winning in this position also. This is why this move wasn't played. A takes b3 instead, and we'll return to that later. That exact variation, but with a slight twist. This is why a3 was played. Try to keep the position closed, and now she has to give up a pawn. So Yudasin took, and now he finally moves the knight, but he moves it with tempo, right? Because he's threatening to take on e5, hitting the queen. Polgar brings out her final piece, and now Yudasin plays rook ac8. Also playable is rook b8. All right, with the idea of knight c3 and then typical Sicilian exchange sacrifice. And white is in dire straits here also, aka lost. So after rook ac8 though, Polgar attacked with knight to d4. Yudasin just simply took the pawn, attacking the queen. Queen moves to c8. I'm sorry, to b7, attacking the rook on c8, and also attacking the pawn twice on b3. At this time, Yudasin goes in for the kill and just simply plays knight to d3, attacking the rook on e1. Notice the rook on d1 cannot capture the knight because of the problem on the back rank on e1, and the pawn on b2 is under a lot of stress and threatening to be captured. So Polgar just decided to capture the rook. course, there's a fork. Polgar goes to a2. And now Yudasin just brought his rook back to f8. Because after this check right here, king a2, once again, white is threatening the back rank there. So, basically mate in 2. So he just basically just brings his rook back to f8, and he still has all the threats remaining. All right, so here Polgar had to resign. So at this point, Polgar wasn't yet that shining star that she would come to be. It was like Yudasin was already at his peak, and Polgar was still on the rise. So he caught her at the right time, right? Coming up before she was at her full strength there. I'm just gonna go back and show you the other variation that could have worked out a little better. So here I told you that white had two choices: knight b5, which we saw in the game, and also knight e4. A difference between these two variations is that white is able to protect her king with this knight on e4, interestingly enough. So I'll give you a variation, a fantasy variation. First, I want to show you the other line. So we looked at this knight b5, right? This was a game. However, let's see, b3, and let's say Polgar takes, right? We looked at this line, but I just want to keep it in your memory right now. So let's say takes, and we looked at what happens here. But instead of that, we're going to look at the bad line of queen takes e7 here. So we see what happens, right? White gets chased all over the board and is doomed with the knight on b5. Now we're going to go back. Knight to e4 instead. And we're going to look at the same thing. b3 takes, check. Right? We're going to have the queen capture. And now rook takes. And with that knight on e4, the knight provides important defensive coverage for white. So, for instance, there's no check on c3 without, of course, losing the rook. And if there's a check on b3, the rook can simply just go up to d3 and block the check from the queen. Also, white is threatening checkmate, right, on the back rank. So just that little difference between bringing the knight to the center and to the flank makes all the difference in whether she was able to actually capture the pawn instead of having to play the move a3 and then allowing the sequence rook c2 and all that, because by that time she was already in trouble. So that's another thing. So at this point, after making this move, which turned out to be an error. Again, it looked okay, but it turned out to be an error after this brilliant move b4. Here she had to play a knight e4 to have a chance, as opposed to playing knight b5. After knight b5, and this is already over because she can't play a takes. In other words, she has to play a3, and then she's just losing after all of these subsequent captures. So we have to go back even further to diagnose what went wrong. So instead of the move that was played in the game, queen d7, what would have maintained dynamic equality would have just been simply queen takes b5 here. Right, of course, going to endgame is possible, but black's not gonna do that. But this sample variation right here just gives you an idea of what it could look like for both sides. And this is probably the best for both sides in the position. Black is equalized, and both sides have chances here in the position. After queen takes b5 instead of the ill-advised queen d7. So that is it for that game. Judit Polgar, and Leonid Yudasin. So I hope you enjoyed that. Again, please subscribe and like, and just please support my channel down in the links below. I love to hear from you guys in the comments. And like I said, hit me up on chess games, chess.com. I'm sorry, live chess. Get in, on Instagram, Twitter, whatever. Let's do this. Let's build this thing up. The critical mass here. All right. So hopefully I'll be seeing you guys soon. Again, if you know who the player of the day is, I think I mention that. I'm not sure, but again, those of you who have been following me for a while know I always put a player of the day either above or on the left hand side of the screen. In this case, if you know who it is, just give me a shout out. Let me know, and I'll shout you out in the next video. And then maybe give you opportunity to suggest some content, or I'll go over a game that you might request, or opening, or something to that nature. All right, so once again, thank you guys for joining me, and I'm gonna look at another video, do another one in the Chekover variation, but this time we're gonna look at it with that Maratsi bond, with that move c4. All right, so hopefully you guys stick around, and I'll see you guys soon in the next video.